Sair da escola já com uma formação profissional no currículo? Parece bom demais pra ser verdade, né? Pois é. No ensino técnico do Senac, isso é possível. É ensino médio junto com formação técnica, que acontece durante os 3 anos. Lá, eles usam metodologia para projetos, desenvolvendo competências como resolução de problemas, pensamento crítico e colaboração, além de valores éticos e sustentáveis. Quer saber? Senac. Acesse sp.senac.br/ensino médio e saiba mais.
Hi there, I am Sarah Jane Case, and I'm the host of your new favorite show, Enneagram and Coffee. This podcast is dedicated to discussing the beautiful and hard parts of being human. We discuss the Enneagram, a personality map that is taking over the world, for increased self-compassion, personal growth, and healthier relationships. Listen to Enneagram and Coffee on the iHeart app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome to Book Talk for Book Talk, a literary podcast where we deep dive into the writings of your favorite novels. This summer, we are hosting our Romantasy Edition of a book club while we prepare for our 15-part literary analysis of Sarah J. Maas's A House of Sky and Breath. This is Jack.
And I'm Amy, and each week we'll discuss one book from our Summer Book Club roster. By using our literary background, we'll provide our first blush analysis of each book, as well as discuss listener thoughts.
This week, we are discussing The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandanna. Can we talk a little bit about the magic system?
We haven't talked about Mika yet.
Oh, great. Can we talk a little bit about Mika, please? No.
Do you want to talk about the magic system first?
No. Let's talk about Mika. She's great. I always like to save the best for last. And she's just so great. But let's just do it. I like her. I love her.
So what do you like about her?
What do I not?
Because she's not perfect, despite what I said. Like I said earlier that she, I don't find any flaws in her.
Yeah.
That being said, she's not perfect.
Yeah, but I'm hard pressed to find you a flaw, because even her flaws are like really good. I think I love how honest Mika is with herself and with those around her. I feel like Mika could have gone a different route with her childhood.
Mm-hmm.
Did Sangu give us a scene with the following things I'm about to say? No. But do I feel like it was there behind the scenes? Yes. So I feel like Mika made a choice at one point to say, I choose. Yes, she chooses to kind of move around, but I choose to not be cruel. I choose to be kind. I choose to to live this life, because she has her kind versus nice. And she talks about wanting to be, it's better to be kind. But I feel like you can't have that type of traumatic childhood and not make a conscious choice. I don't think that's going to be a kind of childhood that you walk away naturally kind. I think that's who Mika is, but it's not without consideration. And, people can act out, and she'd have every reason in the world to act out and to decide to, live a more reckless life. Does she run away from things? Yes, but go ahead.
Well, and what I think Sangu does so well is that it is very easy to see cause and effect.
Mm-hmm.
Her childhood, how she was brought up, how people took advantage of her.
Yeah.
How Primrose neglected her.
Yep.
And the effect. She doesn't get close to people.
Yep.
She moves every 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
And she doesn't know how to be vulnerable. Like, that cause and effect is very, very clear.
Yep.
And very well done without being beaten over the head.
Yeah.
I think that makes her an imperfect character, right? But you love her because she knows she struggles with vulnerability, and she is making conscious decisions throughout her journey in this novel to become more vulnerable.
And she's not mean about her vulnerability too. Like, she does move around a lot, but she's always been honest about that too. Like, even in the beginning when we see her leaving her gorgeous neighbor that is more interested in her dog than her, she talks about well, you knew I was going to leave eventually. And, there's always that heads up. Even when she starts going working at Nowhere House, these are things that she tells them. I'm going to circle back to the fact that Mika is 31. First off, love 30-year-old representation.
I think it's so important for this book to be successful
Yeah.
because she doesn't fuck around.
Yeah. She doesn't fuck around, and I also think there's still, like okay, I hope that I hope that this like, you can figure out what I'm saying. Not a naive she 'cause she's not naive, a youthfulness. There's
Mhm.
still a youthfulness and a playfulness to Mika that
Mhm.
it's not I don't to me, when I read this, I think, "Oh, yeah, this is like us," you know? I'm
Yeah.
not saying that
Yeah.
we are like Mika, I would wish to be like Mika. Mika'd be one of those people
Yeah.
that we met in real life and would be like, "How do we get her to
Sh
be friends with us?"
I know, she's so
She's
cool.
so cool. Um, I think we'd scare her off, but, like, I think she'd indulge us, and
Yeah.
we'd get lunch with her occasionally, and then, be like, "Oh my god, Mika's so cool." But, like, I think that there's a youthfulness to her and a
Mhm.
playfulness that is honest into what it means to be a 30-year-old of today.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like, you don't have some of the messiness of your 20s,
Yeah.
but you're still figuring things out.
Mhm.
You're maybe a little more self-aware, but you're still struggling with, and I think this is the case for a lot of people our age, vulnerability, where do I belong?
Yeah.
I think that's a natural feeling
Mhm.
for this age, but she also has enough self-worth
Mhm.
to be like, "I'm not gonna tolerate your shit."
Yep. Yeah. Her the story is never about her self-worth. Like,
Yeah.
yes, there's, insecurities, yes, there's the fear of trusting people, but it's not about self-worth. It's not about, am I worthy of love? Like, I know she questions of, would they love me? Would they stick
Mhm.
around? That is the main question, but because Mika likes herself, and she says
Yeah.
that she likes herself and she worked on liking herself, but because
Mhm.
Mika likes herself, the conversation isn't about like, I'm not worthy of it. It's would they actually? Because no one else has.
Right.
And
Right.
that's a really
Exactly.
important differentiation there.
I agree. I agree. Like, for example, when she finds out the truth about
Mhm.
Lillian and she leaves, it's not about I wasn't enough and therefore they didn't tell me the truth. It was people always let you down.
Yeah.
Or right? Right. It was about them. It wasn't about
I
her.
mean, and it's like I think she went through all the emotions. Like I think she did go
Oh
through some
yeah.
of the emotions of it being like I wasn't enough for them to tell me about it, but she doesn't like stay there mentally. I think it was a really good job that she goes through everything. Like she kind of goes
Mhm.
through naturally as any person would do of like, okay, how could they lie to me? Well, I kind of can know why they would lie to me. They would do that. Okay, but they didn't trust me. Is it because like, well, no, I get why they didn't trust me. Okay, was any of the stuff that was there real? Like,
Mhm.
so she
Mhm.
kinda goes through all of the emotions, and again, that's really normal, right? Like, we would do
Right.
that, and when you have a grown-ass mind that kinda understands things a little bit more, you can have that moment of like, "Oh, I do understand why they didn't tell me this."
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
can and by doing that, you get to whittle down through your emotions a lot faster and then figure out what's the thing that hurts the most. And the thing that hurts the most for her is throwing herself off the ledge and being able to trust someone and say, "This is scary, I'm
Right.
gonna do it."
Right. Right. Yeah. And that's a scary journey no matter who you are and what age you
Yep.
are.
Yeah.
Taking that first leap of faith with a new relationship.
Oh,
That's difficult.
the each, like, major relationship in my life, I will always remember each point, there's, like, a realization of, "Oh, we're at that point that I'd get fucked up." If we broke up, I'd
Mhm.
be like, "Okay, we are now." I'm like it's, like, almost like a layer of, like, descent or, when Bryce is, like, going
I was gonna say when you're going through the
through the
drop.
drop, like, there's, like, a moment of, like, a line, and I'm like, "And there we go, now I'm in." Like, now this would hurt. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
and yeah, and I think that that is scary, that doesn't get old, and it shouldn't get old, like, it should be scary because it's part of the fun, you
Yeah.
know? And that's also, like, part of the fun of being able to trust people with you, and it's like and it's not just about Jamie, I'm like, wanna punch something of how happy I am. It's like it's not about just trusting Jamie, it's about trusting
Yeah.
everyone there, about Ian and Ken and Lucy, not the girls
Yeah.
because 'cause they're children and they are amazing and they are perfect.
Yeah.
But it's not like, will this boy break my heart? Which is a valid
Right.
thing, but will this boy and these other people who I absolutely love break my heart?
Yeah. Right. Right. It's about, will my found family,
Mhm.
who I feel rejected by because they chose not to tell me the truth,
Yeah.
can I trust them? Can I trust that when they tell me they love me,
Yep.
they're now they're being sincere?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that, like, no one talks about the jump and the scary and, like, putting yourself into the whole found family aspect of it, and,
Mhm.
we all us and all of our friends live in LA, and, like, you're my found family, and, like,
Mhm.
just like with family, it's not there's work to be put into it. There's
Oh,
no such
yeah.
thing as, like, we're never gonna, like, have an argument, or we're never gonna have struggles, and we're gonna talk about it, and it's kind of like, well, if I'm planning on having you be in my life forever,
Mhm.
then, like, you're going to have these moments, and you're going to talk about it, and that's, like, what Jamie tells her is, like, "I'm
Right.
not gonna promise you I'm not gonna hurt you because, like, that's impossible, but
Right.
I will promise that, like, we'll talk it out, we'll do all these other things," and that's the same thing where when if you're going to throw yourself into this idea of found family and have a found family, families fight, families
Yep.
resolve, and that's the most important
Yep.
thing, and that's the scary part, like, she's not only throwing her trust into one person, she's throwing her trust into all of them. Whew.
Yeah. Yeah. And what I think Sangu does so great is, despite the gravity of that process and that choice for Mika, there's still fun to be had.
Yeah,
There's still kindness. She's funny.
yeah,
Like, this is just a very lovable character who, r despite, or almost in spite of
mhm,
everything that had happened to her as a child, what I think what I love most about her is that she's kind when she doesn't need to be kind.
yeah,
Like, I think about the tea that she makes and gives
mm,
to her neighbor before she leaves,
yeah,
like, hopefully, with this luck tea, he'll be able to find
yeah,
a neighbor who doesn't drive him crazy,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Or doesn't wear a clown suit. So, she's just so good at her core,
Yeah,
and I think that's it really that makes the whole book.
it does make the whole book. She's good at her core, and I think being good at her core also makes her not afraid of things, like, she's
Mhm.
also she's afraid of the right of I don't know how to call it, the right stuff, like the trust stuff, but she's not afraid of the work. Like, so,
Right.
all the things that, like, I was just saying, like, you gotta be ready to fight with family, resolve things. That sounds scary, but it's not. Like, it doesn't
Yeah.
have to be scary, and that's the thing that, like, is so Mika about everything, is that, like, well, all these things could be scary, but Mika makes it not scary.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. So, one thing that I think is important about Mika and magic,
Mhm.
and that I did not know until I was trying to find out if the author was adopted, is the author is neurodivergent.
I could spot that. I spotted that.
And I feel what I really enjoy about this book, and I don't know that this is what the author intended, but I could see magic as metaphor
Mhm.
for being neurodivergent.
Mhm. Mhm.
Why do you say, like, "Ah, I knew it, I could call
Oh
it."
my god. The one was smells. Like, I understand smells.
Mhm.
The other one was, she said, like, she talks about touching things. Like, she was on a train and just wanted to touch something, and
Mhm,
also,
mhm.
like, liking the feeling of being cold. And
Yeah.
these are things where, like, for me, it's like noise. Like, I can't stand noise, but, like, I do like I am very also hyper aware of smells, and maybe I'm not as intense with, like, liking certain fabrics. Like, I do like certain fabrics, but, like, I can't have certain collars around my throat. It
Mhm.
stresses me out too much. So, it was like it wasn't until this time I was reading it that I started
Mhm.
spotting it, and I was like, "Yes, yes, I see it. Neurodivergent representation."
Which is great
Yeah.
because we don't see that, and it's not like it calls it out as, "She has
Mhm.
this diagnosis."
But it's also magical.
Right, right, which is even better. But now that I'm putting 2 and 2 together, even when she grabs Jamie
Yeah.
and sniffs
Yeah,
him
yeah.
and describes what she's smelling, and then she pushes back, she's like, "Sorry, sometimes I have to remind myself I
Yeah.
can't do that."
It was to me, that was one of the things. It was when she said, I have to remind myself not to do that. That was the immediate
Mhm.
the thing that flagged it for me, 'cause
Mhm.
it's the, like, having to accept that that's not quote unquote "normal" type thing.
Mhm.
And I also really loved the
Let's not normal, let's say appropriate.
socially appropriate, yeah, that's, like,
Yeah.
and that's what I mean, like, I hate calling it normal or not, so socially appropriate because I love it, like, I related to a lot of the things and the way that she described magic, and when
Mhm.
she talked about magic, and I can see some of that being representation of, like, or metaphors of aspects of being neurodivergent, it reminded me a lot
Mhm.
of, like, I kinda describe sometimes when I'm having a bipolar episode of hypomania, it feels like a power, like a superpower,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
I just love the feeling so much, and I love the metaphor of turning that into magic. Here are these things that
Mhm.
society may not that may mock people for, that people that, society may not get, and
Mhm.
what a beautiful way of saying, "Okay, but what if it's magic? What if this is what makes people special?" And I say, "Yes, Sangu, please be our friend."
Well, that and it's so integral to who they
Yeah.
are, like, Mika would never give up magic,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, these women love what makes them different not all of them, right?
Yeah.
There are some women in the society who don't feel like they need
But
it.
that's literally what life is. I just had that conversation this week. Someone was asking me about being bipolar, and that's like I even with the crap that comes with it, I wouldn't change it. It is just part of who I am and I love it.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that's like and just some people like with magic, not everyone, you pointed it out, Amy. You did a good job pointing things out. Like some people don't have good relationships with their magic.
Right, right, and they're okay leaving it alone and just enjoying their relationship with their husband.
Mhm.
But for people like Primrose and Mika, Mika's like, "We can't live without it. This is essential to who we are."
I just really love this book.
It's such a
It's
great
such
book.
a good book.
And a lot of our listeners have said the same thing, like, they love the whimsy,
Yeah.
the unique story, the representation. Uh, one of our listeners said, loved the whimsical take on witches' brooms,
Yeah.
like, the car called the
That is
broomstick.
so funny.
It is such a great little nugget.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. It's so clever. That's the other thing, like, I would have to, like, get a physical copy and highlight every single part that's clever, and then it would just be one giant yellow book, because there is just so many one-liners that's just so smart and funny, but not every book is perfect, and with
Right.
every when we asked everyone, "What are your likes?" we also asked, "What are your dislikes?" And it's hilarious how many likes we got and how many dislikes, with how little amount of dislikes we got. Let me list some of them, and I agree with this dislike, significantly so. Nada. This book is perfect in my eyes.
I thought you wait, you said you disagree or
No, I
you
agree.
mean
I
you
agree. I
agree?
agree with this
Okay.
dislike. That nothing's wrong. This book is perfect. I agree with that dislike.
So one of our listeners said, "I needed more oomph, either in the romance or the plot. I put this in my Hallmark reads category," which is not an unfair categorization of this, I would say. Not in terms of quality, but in terms of maybe
Feel.
themes. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about this more because I've been talking about the warm, fuzzy feeling this book gives me. And
Mhm.
that's the same thing that people get from Hallmark vibes. I do feel like we have to ask ourselves, does warm, fuzzy feelings immediately mean Hallmark? And does it immediately mean that we overlook plot? And I don't want to say that, I don't want to like take down this listener's point of view. Like, you know, it's fair if you want to say that there wasn't plot. I personally feel like there was enough plot, like, I'm happy with it, but I get that, like, the thing what I understand where it might feel that way for some because to me, the book was about the characters and their growth
Mhm.
rather than, "Oh, no, Edward's coming." Edward's coming
Mhm.
was a through point, and it was the thing that they had to, like, get through and work towards, but
Right.
it was never about having this larger plot, it was going to be about these wonderful characters and their growth.
Yeah, so I want to go back to, I think, for me, I feel like an assessment is being made on what does it mean to be Hallmark and is that a bad thing or a good thing?
Mhm.
I feel like, a lot of people may view being categorized as Hallmark as a bad thing, and
Yeah,
I don't agree
I
because
agree.
I think it gets at what you're saying, Jack, that things can be character driven without a life or death situation
Mhm.
and a huge plot. Right, and for some people, they want more plot than they want character
Yeah,
focus,
yeah,
and that's okay. That's not this book,
yeah.
and so for this person, this listener wanting more plot or more romance, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's just a personal preference. That doesn't take away from what this book accomplishes
Mhm.
and or what this book set out to do. So for me, the assessment that it's Hallmark, I don't view, you know, Hallmark is very, very successful for a reason
Yeah.
because it accomplishes what it sets out to do and people eat that shit up.
And I think we associate quote unquote Hallmark to represent cheesy also.
Mhm.
You get that warm fuzzy feeling, but you also know you're going to get something super cheesy. To me, there was nothing cheesy about this book. It was just
Right.
honest and it was
Yeah.
sweet. And honest and sweet might go parallel cheesy sometimes. Sometimes they overlap, but I don't feel like this book does cheesy. I think this book does honest, sweet, kind, smart, sad,
Yeah. Yeah.
and heartwarming, and it never crosses that like full Hallmark line. Because for me, and there's no official definition of what Hallmark means. I think it's like a preference, person by person. But for me, Hallmark kind of implies a little bit more of that like cheesy, hokey quality too.
Okay. Okay. And that's your
Yeah,
personal
of
definition of what it
Hallmark.
means to be
And
Hallmark.
someone else might be like, "How dare you, Jack? They're not hokey. You're a horrible person. Um,
Mhm.
I'm gonna do a TED talk type thing." So, and that's fine. Like, and that's like, it all comes to personal preference, just like this listener. Like, that's their personal preference. And now a quick ad break.
Fall has officially started here in Los Angeles, and that means we finally get to do fall activities.
I have been counting down the days for when I can go to pumpkin patches, maybe even hit up an apple orchard, and I get to do all of it looking super cute in my Quince boyfriend sweater.
This weather is perfect for my dark academia vibes, and I'm so excited to bust out my washable silk blouse because I'm going to be taking pictures.
Quince is known for their Mongolian cashmere sweaters from $50. And that's not all. Quince has so many other amazing things on their website.
All of those items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands.
That includes leather jackets, cotton cardigans, soft denim. Like my entire fall wardrobe is genuinely turning into Quince wardrobe.
By partnering directly with top factories and cutting out the cost of the middleman, we get savings as the customer.
One of my favorite parts about Quince is the fact that they only work with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices. And they still manage to get premium fabrics and finishes for that, luxury feeling for every item that they have.
Get cozy in Quince's high-quality wardrobe essentials. Go to quince.com/booktalk for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's Quince, QUINCE.com/booktalk, BOOKTALK, to get free shipping and 365-day returns. That's quince.com/booktalk.
When it comes to the romance, one of the other questions was, or complaints of this book, and I had this complaint the first time I read it, not the second time. Slash, I
Mhm.
do, but I don't. And that's like, there's not enough spice and smut in this book, but it's also perfect at the level that it is.
Right. I mean, again, this book did not set out to be smutty.
Yeah.
That wasn't its goal. And you can write smutty fan fiction about this, Jack, and I would enjoy it, but it's not necessary for me to enjoy what this book accomplishes.
Yeah, this is one of those instances. Now, again, I am the self-titled, I'm not the queen of smut, but I would love to be the queen of smut. I love smut. There's nothing that makes me happier than like wonderful smutty scene. This is one of those rare instances I think it would take away from the book.
Yeah, I agree.
And that
I
we
agree.
got some spice. We got, he talked about wanting to go down on her and all this stuff, and I was
Mhm.
like, "Yes, Jamie, more." Like, we understand, like, he has his hand between her legs, and she's like, "You tell me if I'm happy to be here." Or what was it? There was, like, another God, she's just so funny. There was a moment where Jamie said something about, like, "We're not gonna have sex." She's like, "No, no, don't say that. Never say that." Like,
Right, yeah,
we're
yeah.
gonna have sex." Like, there's like, it's so funny. Like, it's still without just because there isn't smut, like detailed smut, it's still mature enough. Like, even
Mhm,
like the way that she describes Sangu just like describes the sex scene, it's like funny. Like, they're
mhm.
having fun with it. And it's
Yeah.
not this like, it is steamy, but it's not this like, super, like,
Serious
yes.
and
And
intense.
that's sex, like, it's
Yeah.
funny. There's awkward moments. There's gonna be, you should laugh at it, and they are having and fun, and they're laughing. I want again, in my new quest to endeavor to have her become our friend Amy, I will be like, "Give me those scenes, please. I know you wrote them. I know you wrote them. Please give them to me." Yeah, like, it's just like, I hate saying it. I feel like it would have taken away from the book. Damn it. Damn it.
Said the Queen of Smut.
I'm about to hand over my crown now. Dethroned. Let's shift the conversation a little bit to the girls. And I'm excited, one, to call them girls because you and I make a conscious effort not to call women girls. And we finally get to call girls girls because they're children.
They are children.
And they are the ages 10, 8, and 7. And let's go ahead and shift the conversation a little bit to them, uh, each of their personalities, especially Terracotta.
Mhm, mhm. So, just as a, like, generally about the girls, I really enjoyed reading about their personalities
Mm.
and their quirks and the infighting between the sisters, because I have 2 sisters who are 12 and 14 years younger than me, so I saw them grow up during those times of their
Yeah.
lives and saw a lot of the fighting, but also the love,
Mhm.
saw a lot of their just unique personality and humor. And it just gave me so much joy to see because it reminded me of my
Yeah.
sisters.
Yeah.
So I thought Sangu did that really, really well. And it strikes me that she must have daughters,
Oh.
maybe.
Oh.
I don't know. I know she has kids, but I'm going to guess she has daughters because she did the whole daughter thing,
Yeah.
little girl thing really well. Now, for Terracotta, I thought Sangu did a fantastic job of taking a child who loves her family fiercely, who loves their parental figure fiercely,
Mhm.
and emulates them
Mm.
because that's her showing love.
Yeah.
And I think that she did that really well. Terracotta and her decisions, are obviously Terracotta needs a firm hand in terms of just like, look, we don't talk about killing people. Like,
Yeah.
let's just not. Let's just not. But the stubbornness I really identified with
Mm.
in
Yeah.
in a girl the age of 8
Yeah.
or 9.
Yeah. I think what I love about Terracotta and all of the girls is that each of them have their own trauma, and it's a shared trauma. They talked about
Mhm.
feeling like they're just Lillian strays,
Yeah.
and Lillian just collects her strays. That's how they describe it. And that is not without trauma. That's not without leaving a mark and impression there. However, you can also see what it's like when those girls are raised with a lot of love and a lot of support and a lot of healthy relationships in their
Mhm.
life while still having a figure going in and out of their life. And I think that that is such a hard thing to do, to say, like, here's their trauma, here's their healthy parts, and how do they both merge? Because, like, of course, Terracotta not only emulates Jamie, but doesn't want another witch coming in and out of her life the way that Lillian
Yeah.
is.
Right. Yeah, I just had that thought too
Yeah.
of like she doesn't need another Lillian. She already struggles enough
Mhm.
with Lillian. She doesn't need to struggle with another person as well.
Yeah, and it's like, of course, then, like, that's what that would mean, and she's also been taught to be afraid of her magic, so here's a person who's coming
Mhm.
in, who's gonna teach her more about the thing that she's supposed to be afraid of, like, yeah, of course, there's a lot of things that would make her react that way, and then you add the fact that she's strong-willed and, all these, like, wonderful things that make her her and makes Amy Amy as a child. It's, uh yeah, I think that it was such a well done way of writing children
Yeah.
that you don't see that often, and I think sometimes authors shy away from writing kids because of, like, it could bring things down plot-wise, character-wise, and makes it harder, and, those girls are the heart of the book, so, like, you can't have this book without those girls, but writing kids is hard, and she did a great job with them.
Yeah, because she didn't make them older than they are,
Yeah.
and she didn't make them younger than they are. Like, there is something very intelligent about children from the ages of 7 to 12, maybe even 6 to 12,
Mhm.
that people take for
Yeah.
granted. And I think Sangu did a really, really wonderful job capturing that,
Mhm.
as well as capturing their naivety,
Yeah.
right? Of getting mad at each other and threatening putting fish in their
And
rooms
animating a
and
skeleton thinking that they could trick him.
yeah. Yeah, which was great. Like, it adds great humor because kids are very, very
Yeah.
humorous because they think of things that we don't think
Yeah.
of as
They're so
adults.
funny.
They are so funny. I think the two with the most personality are Rosetta and Terracotta,
Mhm.
and that's because they're older.
Yeah.
I really also liked Rosetta's little storyline of just
Yeah.
being almost like a Bronte sister who's, like,
Mhm.
shut up in a house and not allowed to go anywhere or meet people and reading all the time.
And really interested in love. Like, you can't
Yeah.
be obsessed with Austen and all these, like, male leads and not be interested in love, and then you could ask yourself, "Why is she so invested in love? What makes her
Mhm.
so desperate to see that love? Who's the only example of a couple in that house? Ken and Ian."
And yeah, yeah,
And talk about a great example of 2 people that love each other.
right. And it's I see me, and I'm sure you see yourself as a child learning to fall in love with stories
Mhm.
and wanting to see that those types of emotions play out in your real life and for
Yeah,
yourself.
yeah.
It makes me wonder if Sangu was writing about herself as a 12-year-old.
Mhm, mhm.
I just think there are just these lovely little touches about what it means to be human, what it means to be female,
Yeah.
what it means to be part of a family. And I think she does it fantastic through these children.
Through these children, yeah, it's like the things that those kids have to go through of being adopted, of having a
Mhm.
family, of, like, a unique family coming together. One of my favorite lines was, like, when Mika kind of reflects on having to shut down a conversation with Ian and Lucy when they're like, "Can you teach them how to be women of color?" And she's like, "I no, I like that's not what are you doing here?" Like,
Yeah,
do
yeah.
not come to me with that information. But you do have young women of color, and what does that mean in this world, and how people are going to perceive you, and all these other things that they're going to have to address. All of that is discussed in this book. If you
Mhm.
look, it is
Mhm.
all there. You don't have to look too
Yeah,
hard because
yeah.
it's flat out there. I do want to quickly mention the storyline with Lillian and how
Mhm.
she's dead. I really appreciated the second time reading it, knowing that she was
Mhm.
dead and some of these like one-liners because there's like one moment where Mika asked Jamie, "I have a lot of experience burying dead bodies," and he's like, "I've buried a few bodies in my time."
Yeah. I know. There is she doesn't hide it.
No.
She doesn't hide who Lillian is, and she doesn't hide that Lillian's dead.
Yeah.
You just have to know to look for it.
Mhm.
I thought that I yeah, I have a real appreciation for how she handled all the secrets that are revealed,
Yeah.
like Ian's witch mother
Mhm.
and him knowing and seeing magic.
Yeah.
Like, there's lots of little clues for all these things everywhere, but they're not I keep saying heavy-handed,
No.
but they aren't.
And they're, like, plot twist enough, like, Primrose
Yeah,
being the sister, well, she mentioned having a sister several times, and another clue is that, um
both of their names are flowers.
not yeah, but not just that, also, at the very beginning, Mika talks about seeing that, like, oh, the girls aren't sisters, blood-related sisters, because of how unusual it is to actually have siblings because parents die so
Mhm,
young. So, what's the
mhm.
only kind of way you can have siblings? Unless you're a twin.
Yep, yep, yep. It's so smart.
Like, it's such a like, when the first time I read it, I was definitely like, "Oh," like, I was surprised, and the fact that Lillian was dead and that they buried a body, and
Mhm,
these, like, they're kinda, like, joking about it, and you can tell these moments when they're freaking out, and now you know why they're
mm,
freaking out, and, you know, all the questions that they ask make sense, but that was one of those plot lines that I thought was funny, so funny and
yeah,
well done,
yeah, yeah.
and not hiding it.
It yeah, yeah, and whether or not the way they dealt with the body and get away with murder, is it
They didn't
realistic?
kill her.
Whatever. No, I that's true, sorry.
They didn't
I
kill
was
her.
just they didn't kill her, they didn't kill her. I apologize.
Yeah.
It was just me saying the phrase for the sake of saying the
Yeah, how dare
phrase.
you? It's
You're so offended on their
yeah.
behalf. The other thing that I feel like Sangu doesn't hide, but also doesn't need to explain a lot about is the way magic
Yeah.
works. And what I like about the start of this book is it's very clear that, at least to me, we're not really going to get a description that is very technical
Mhm.
because the witches have a moment in their gathering monthly where it's like we share spells and there's a spell for getting rid of dark circles under
Yeah.
your eyes and
Yeah.
you know like when those are the spells we're not going to get a very technical magic
Yeah.
system, which is great, which is we don't need for the environment that we're in.
We don't need that, but it's also we know that each witch has their own strengths,
Mhm.
and we're not gonna know other strengths, but I can tell you how potions work. I can
Yeah.
tell you that she needs to collect stars, and that it's like baking, and Mika just kinda, like, figures it out and practices, and,
Mhm.
and I love that it makes sense why we wouldn't know how other magic works, but we would
Yeah.
have a really good sense of, like, what Mika's doing and how it works,
Right.
and that's,
Right.
like, and I don't need to know more about how you're collecting moonlight. I believe you.
Yeah.
I trust you.
Yeah. Yeah. She does take the time to explain to Jamie how her ti her traveling spell works, her speed
Yeah,
spell,
yeah.
even though it's not technically a speed spell, made me think of winnowing because
Yep.
it's like the folding of time and
Yeah,
space
yeah.
together. I also liked when she explains to the children, like, it's about intention,
Yes.
and if you're not clear with your intention, magic's gonna move that spider in onto your
Yeah.
pillow instead of outside.
I also love how magic is sentient too,
Mhm,
where
mhm,
magic feels guilty that it hurt her. Magic is playful. Magic needs a firm hand. Magic's like a puppy. And,
mhm,
magic's all over, and you can play with magic, and it's like gold dust and
mhm.
you can see it. And that is such a unique way of approaching magic too. And also you by having it be sentient and having it kind of be like a little trickster and a little, little devil, it makes it so that it's okay that there isn't a strict system because
Yeah.
magic's going to do what magic's going to do.
Right, and no one can fully understand
Yeah.
it, and I really do like that, and I like the moments where she's like, "It felt like a little cat twining through her legs and pushing
Mhm.
her forward." I think it was done really well to
Yeah.
not inundate us in a system that may or may not make sense,
Mhm.
and instead being like, "It's a companion,
Yeah.
and it has personality just as much as we do."
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, my brain just keeps jumping into all these other things that, um, 'cause so you're talking about magic, which made me think about, like, the curse that, that the witches
Mm,
can't have a kid, but by having that be a part of the narrative and lore around witches, you are now bringing in the discussion of, um, a lot of times of rape as well, because
mm,
Mika is a product of rape as well. Like it's not said in so many words, but I mean, but it is like they're saying that a lot of women didn't get a choice on whether they were going to be a mom or not, and
yeah,
you also, so like by having magic be this, this thing that where there's a system to it, it's a little bit more loose, but then you introduce the curse, and then you kind of have the like, well, how does this continue? Well, what some women might choose, a lot of women didn't get to choose. And
Yeah.
that is such an immediate narrative without getting into it, without having
Mhm.
to discuss what that is. Mika says something like that she is happy to be alive, but she's sad that her mom had to go through that experience. And
Mhm.
talk about another way of like looking at it as, not women not having a choice in their own body and their health, and what does it
Yeah.
mean? And now like, you're having like, not only are you forced to have a kid, but that's a death sentence now.
Right, right. And yeah, choosing to have a kid, you're really risking because they could not be a witch,
Yeah.
but and you'll live, but if they are a witch, you're gonna die.
Yeah.
I think what this whole curse thing does, it really just heightens this idea that the idea of having children and being pregnant, in an ideal world involves a conversation,
Yeah.
involves very deliberate choices. And that's not the case for everybody, whether they're a survivor of assault
Mhm.
or they get accidentally pregnant because their birth control didn't work or whatever the case is. But what I love about it is it shows that witches who do get pregnant
Mhm.
made that choice, that they wanted
That
that.
there are
I
some
think
who did make that choice, yeah.
right, sorry, that there are some who did make that choice. What I really, really like about this curse idea is that while it drove people away, I think what the opposite intention would be for witches, like, it almost forces the found family
Yeah.
aspect, right?
Yeah.
Which isn't a bad thing for witches to have, as we find towards the end of the novel. Witches should be part of a community. They
Uh-huh.
should be gathering together and helping each other and being role models for each
Mhm.
other. So I did like that aspect of it
I
too.
would love to talk to Sangu about it because I like that it wasn't solved.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like Mika came in and here we are, like, she can suddenly solve this hundreds of years curse because she, collected some more star magic or stardust.
Right. Right.
But it's also just really sad. Like, and as someone who
Mhm.
wants to have kids, I would be devastated to have like found a partner and and now you don't have a choice in that. And
Yeah.
granted, like, there's always the option of adopting, but like if you wanted to try to have kids with your partner and you don't have that as a choice, like that's really hard and that would make me so sad. And I just would want to know more from Sangu's thought process. Like,
Mhm.
is that because you're going to do future books and, someone's going to solve that? Is that because, is that like a larger metaphor that I'm just not picking up? Like what's the
Mhm.
intention of it? Because it is a choice. And
Yeah.
I don't want to assume that I know what it means of what she did.
Mhm.
So, dear Sangu, please come to the podcast.
Please tell
Yeah.
us. All right, so before we wrap up,
We gotta talk about one of my
got
favorite grumpies.
little emo boy,
I
Jamie.
love him. He's just such a grumpy and she's such a sunshine.
So why do we like Jamie?
He's hot and Irish, and he's
He
grumpy and he's a sucker for kids. Like,
I was gonna say he basically is a parent to
mhm.
these 3 girls, and he's pretty young to be a parent of,
3.
uh, 3, 10, 8, and 7-year-olds. Okay, so that endears me to him, but what else makes him good?
He's kind, like that's his whole thing is that he saves his warmth for the people he cares about,
Mhm.
and he doesn't waste his warmth for people who don't deserve it.
Yeah.
And, there's just like he will be there for his family. He will be there for them entirely. And he also he's like those types of personalities I am such a sucker for because they're just like in the joke. And the joke is that they're
Mhm.
grumpy and they don't want to go
Mhm.
out to the party. Fine, I'll go out to the party. And I'm a curmudgeon and like, all these things. And and the thing is about like getting them out of their box and you're gonna harass them. And
Mhm.
like they're the most fun to tease because because they're a little bit grumpy. And to me, I feel like people like that, or not every single grumpy person is like that, as I've dated and found out. But it's like, for the ones who do get it, I think they're some of the most funny people out there, and they're the least serious because they're so serious.
Okay. All right.
What are your thoughts?
I wouldn't make him my book boyfriend.
You're right. He's my book husband.
I think I like him because he and Mika go on this journey of vulnerability together,
Mm-hmm.
and they grow together, and I liked that process.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
Forearms, that's another category I'm going to throw in there. I don't know. I mean, this is like, I am a sucker for it, like I said, as someone who identifies as sunshine, as a sunshine. I do love a grumpy, but again, there's so many like hidden bad grumpies amongst the grumpies that it gets a little hard to sift through. But Jamie, I think, is just so pure in his intention of loving people. And, what his line at the end when she teases him about not professing his love the way that like all these other characters, and he says, if I loved you any less, I could be able to talk about it. Be still my words of affirmation, heart. Like, sold.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. It's, he's one of those, I love the types of men who reserve their love for the people that they're really going to love.
I figured it out. You love him so much because he's essentially Mr. Darcy.
Yeah. What? They just don't. Do they even exist, these men? I don't know. Still looking.
I gave up looking. I went with
women.
Finding a woman.
You went to look for Emma.
Yeah.
To keep to the Pride and Prejudice theme.
Right. Yeah. Except Emma is the furthest thing from Emma.
I know, but it just was like perfect for that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Out of all of the book boyfriends, because I can't remember which episode we were editing. I think I was editing. There's been a couple episodes you told me I wasn't allowed to date them. Xaden was one. Do I get to date Jamie?
You can date Jamie.
Thank you.
As long as I'm worth his time to be nice.
Of course, to. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Well, so if
that's the risk of a curmudgeon.
Curmudgeon.
That's the risk of it. Yeah, that's the risk of being with a grumpy.
Yeah. You say curmudgeon instead of yeah, there you go.
In my mind, I'm saying it R. I'm from California. We don't really pronounce things correctly.
Wait, if there's an R or a T or a D, we just don't say it.
Yeah. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Book Talk for Book Talk. We encourage you to rate and subscribe to our show on your preferred podcast listening platform. Next week, we'll be discussing The Cruel Prince by Holly Black.
We would love to hear your thoughts based on today's conversation. If you are enjoying the podcast, please visit our website, booktalkforbooktalk.com, to view our latest merch and learn about supporting the show through Patreon, Ko-Fi, or venmo. You can also follow us on TikTok or Instagram at the handle booktalkforbooktalk. Bye.
So if we do that, we can also turn it into like a hydration drinking game, and we can have like certain key words that if like someone says certain things, we just take a drink
hilarious.
of water. Yeah. That's like what I do if like I don't want to get like during meetings, if I'm really annoyed, I'll just like have a list of things that like, all right, take a drink, and it's just water.
That's actually brilliant.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's how you like stay hydrated for a lot of the like annoying days.
I was gonna say that's also a great way to stay like alert.
Yeah.
And during meetings where you're like, I have nothing to contribute, I don't want to be here.
No, turn things like meetings and people into a hydration drinking game. You're fine. You'll be good. Yeah. You'll have to pee so much.
Yeah. Okay.
Like in a good way.
This is all good. This is all brilliant.
Yeah. So, it just, I think like, it's about how do we turn stupid people into entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
That's the moral of the story.
Yep. That's a great moral to live by.
Thank you.
Fall has officially started here in Los Angeles, and that means we finally get to do fall activities.
I have been counting down the days for when I can go to pumpkin patches, maybe even hit up an apple orchard, and I get to do all of it looking super cute in my Quince boyfriend sweater.
This weather is perfect for my dark academia vibes, and I'm so excited to bust out my washable silk blouse because you know I'm going to be taking pictures.
Quince is known for their Mongolian cashmere sweaters from $50. And that's not all. Quince has so many other amazing things on their website.
All of those items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands.
That includes leather jackets, cotton cardigans, soft denim. Like, my entire fall wardrobe is genuinely turning into Quince wardrobe.
By partnering directly with top factories and cutting out the cost of the middleman, we get savings as the customer.
One of my favorite parts about Quince is the fact that they only work with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices. And they still manage to get premium fabrics and finishes for that, luxury feeling for every item that they have.
Get cozy in Quince's high-quality wardrobe essentials. Go to quince.com/booktalk for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's Quince, QUINCE.com/booktalk, BOOKTALK, to get free shipping and 365-day returns. That's quince.com/booktalk.